the sticky notes, and Starlight Club. The morning sun, still shy and golden as melted butter, painted stripes across Arush Sharma's bedroom floor. He blinked awake, the familiar scent of his mom's chai, cardamom and ginger dancing with the steam drifting up the stairs. His backpack, slumped against the door like a tired guard dog, was already half packed, its zipper stubbornly jammed over a crumpled permission slip for the upcoming field trip to the planetarium. Arush sighed, a small puff of air that stirred the dust motes dancing in the sunbeam. Middle school, he thought, rubbing sleep from his eyes, was like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded while riding a unicycle. Especially when your friends were, well, Arush's friends. Downstairs, the kitchen hummed with the comforting symphony of breakfast, the hiss-pop of butter hitting the tava for parathas, the rhythmic thump-thump of his dad chopping onions, and the gentle clink of his little sister Mira, arranging her plastic animal figurines into a tea party on the counter. Arush grabbed a banana, its peel cool and slightly sticky under his fingers. "Ready for the jungle, beta?" his dad asked, a knowing twinkle in his eye. The jungle, indeed. Quid Middle School wasn't just a building, it was a living, breathing ecosystem of lockers, gossip, and shifting social tides, all navigated by a tribe of 12 to 14-year-olds who sometimes felt like they were speaking different languages. Arush's bus stop was a microcosm of that jungle. Maya Chen arrived first, her backpack adorned with glittery pins shaped like cupcakes and rainbows. She beamed, holding up a small, insulated lunch bag that smelled suspiciously like warm pizza pockets. "Arush, you have to try these. My mom made them extra cheesy. Free for everyone who sits with us at lunch today." Her voice was bright like wind chimes, but Arush noticed the slight tension around her eyes. Maya and her best friend, Leo Garcia, were on a relentless quest for popularity, and their currency was snacks. Homemade cookies, fancy juice boxes, even mini muffins, they'd spend their allowances trying to buy a seat at the cool table. It felt sticky. Like trying to hold on to a melting popsicle. Thanks, Maya," Arush mumbled, taking one. The cheese was indeed gooey, stretching like warm taffy as he pulled it apart. "But why free today?" Leo bounded up, his sneakers squeaking on the pavement. "Strategy, my man. New snacks equals new friends. We're aiming for table 7, the real popular zone. Gotta make an impression." He puffed out his chest, but Arush saw the nervous energy in Leo's fingers, constantly adjusting the straps of his backpack. It was like watching two hummingbirds trying to build a nest out of sugar cubes, frantic and fragile. Then came Priya Patel, walking with precise, quiet steps, her Oakwood Middle School planner clutched tightly to her chest like a shield. Her uniform was immaculate, every button fastened just so. "Good morning, Arush." "Maya." "Leo," she said, her voice calm and measured, like a librarian reading a bedtime story. "Did you complete the extra credit questions for Ms. Gupta's math homework? I found a particularly elegant solution using the distributive property." Priya was the undisputed teacher's pet. She knew every rule, anticipated every assignment, and seemed to genuinely enjoy the quiet order of the classroom. To Arush, she was like a perfectly sharpened pencil, useful, precise, but sometimes a little too pointy. He wondered if she ever just played. Before Arush could answer Priya, a loud whoop shattered the morning calm. Dante Rivera skidded to a halt on his skateboard, narrowly missing the bus stop bench. His shirt was untucked, his hair a wild mess, and a grin split his face. "Did you see Mr. Henderson's face when I asked why the cafeteria serves mystery meat that looks like it crawled out of a comic book? Priceless." Dante was the self-appointed confrontation king. He'd argue with teachers about the color of the sky. Is it really blue, or is that just what we're told? Question the rules. Why can't I wear my headphones during silent reading? And generally stir the pot for the sheer thrill of watching it bubble. He wasn't mean, just loud and perpetually curious in a way that often landed him in the principal's office. He reminded Arush of a sparkler, dazzling, exciting, but you had to stand back to avoid getting burned. Mr. Henderson looked like he swallowed a lemon, Dante added, hopping off his board. Classic. The bus rumbled up, its diesel engine growling like a sleepy bear. As they climbed on, Arush spotted Chase Miller and his crew, big quiet boys who seemed to absorb the space around them. They occupied the back row, a fortress of low voices and sideways glances. Chase, with his broad shoulders and calm demeanor, wasn't mean, but he radiated a quiet authority that made most kids give him a wide berth. He'd once helped Arush pick up books he'd dropped, his hands surprisingly gentle, but the next day he'd coolly told Leo to back off when Leo tried to sit near them at lunch. They were the bad big boys, not bullies exact. TLY, but a force of nature you didn't want to accidentally step in front of. Like standing too close to a still pond that might suddenly hide a current. Inside the bus, the air was thick with the smell of new sneakers, cheap perfume, and the faint tang of nervous sweat. Arush slid into a seat next to Ben Carter. Ben was strange. He wore mismatched socks, today one bright orange, one covered in tiny dinosaurs, carried a worn notebook filled with sketches of fantastical creatures, and could tell you the average lifespan of a tardigrade or the chemical composition of moon dust. He was currently muttering about the aerodynamic properties of different bird feathers. Did you know a hummingbird's wing beat creates a vortex ring that's basically a mini tornado? Fascinating. Ben's strangeness wasn't off-putting. It was like finding a secret door in a familiar hallway. Arush liked him, but sometimes felt adrift in Ben's ocean of obscure facts. "Hey Ben," Arush said, unwrapping his slightly squashed banana. "You ready for Ms. Gupta's pop quiz?" Ben blinked, adjusting his thick-rimmed glasses. Pop quiz? On what? The migratory patterns of the Arctic tern? Or perhaps the tensile strength of spider silk? I have notes. He patted his dinosaur sock enthusiastically. Arush just smiled. Ben's world was wonderfully weird. The real social earthquake hit in the cafeteria at lunch. Maya and Leo, true to their word, had laid out an impressive spread on a table near the center: pizza pockets, fruit gummies, even mini bottles of sparkling water. A small crowd had gathered, drawn by the promise of free food. Maya beamed, handing out snacks with the practiced ease of a hostess. Try the pepperoni one, it's amazing. Sit here, Chloe. Arush sat with Priya, Ben, and Lila Sharma, no relation but a coincidence that always made Arush smile. Lila and her friend Zoe Chen, no relation to Maya though Maya would die if she knew, slid into the seats opposite them. Lila had long, dark hair she often tucked behind her ears when she was nervous, and Zoe had bright, intelligent eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Hi, Arush," Lila said, her voice suddenly soft and warm like honey stirred into warm milk. She leaned forward slightly, her hands resting gently on the table. "You're so good at coding, right? Like really good? We've been watching you in Mr. Davies' class. You make it look so easy." Her smile was wide and genuine, but Arush felt a familiar prickle. This was their tactic. Lila and Zoe were incredibly nice, genuinely kind girls, but they had a specific mission getting Arush, or sometimes Ben, to help them with their coding assignments. They'd use affectionate tones, call him genius, and bat their eyelashes just so. It wasn't malicious, but it felt calculated. Like they were using friendship as a tool, not the treasure itself. Arush liked them, but he sometimes wondered if they'd still want to sit with him if he wasn't good at Python. Thanks, Lila, Arush said, shifting uncomfortably. It's just practice. Mr. Davies explains it well. Zoe nodded eagerly, her voice equally sweet. He does. But you get it instantly. We're struggling with the loop functions for the game project. Could you maybe show us after school? Just for a little bit? You're the best. She placed a hand lightly on his arm. It was friendly, but Arush felt the pressure. He wanted to help, but the way they asked made him feel like a vending machine dispensing knowledge for the right coins of compliments. Before he could answer, a commotion erupted near the soda machine. Dante was there, gesturing wildly towards the display. But it says Diet Cola. This tastes like fizzy pond water. Are you sure it's not just carbonated disappointment? He was loud enough that Ms. Alvarez, the lunch monitor, was already weaving through the tables, her expression a mixture of exasperation and resignation. Dante saw her coming and grinned, turning the volume up. Just advocating for student rights, Ms. Alvarez. We deserve beverages that taste like cola, not like sadness in a can, Ms. Alvarez sighed, a sound like wind through dry leaves. Dante, lower your voice. And if you don't like the soda, don't buy it. Now step away from the machine. She guided him gently but firmly towards a quieter corner. Dante went, still muttering about consumer awareness, but he didn't fight her. Ursh noticed how Ms. Alvarez spoke calmly, not angrily. She treated his outbursts like a puzzle to solve, not a problem to punish. Meanwhile, at the popular Table 7, things weren't going as planned for Maya and Leo. Chase Miller and his crew were there, but they weren't eating the snacks. Chase picked up a pizza pocket, examined it with a neutral expression, then set it down. Nah, he said, his voice low but carrying. We got our own. He nodded towards a plain brown bag lunch. Maya's smile faltered just for a second as she watched her carefully constructed snack bridge crumble. Leo tried to hand one to a girl named Chloe, who took it but barely glanced at Maya, already deep in conversation with her friends. The glittery pins on Maya's backpack seemed to lose some of their sparkle. Under the harsh cafeteria lights. The free snacks were being eaten, but the popularity they were buying felt thin like cheap plastic wrap. Later in Ms. Gupta's science class, the air hummed with the low buzz of fluorescent lights and the scratch of pencils. They were taking a quiz on the water cycle, a topic Arush found fascinating with its invisible journeys and hidden reservoirs. He was sketching a quick diagram of evaporation in the margin of his paper when he saw it. 2 rows over, near the back, Raj Patel, Priya's quieter, less rule-abiding cousin, and Samira Khan were leaning subtly towards each other. Raj's hand, hidden under his desk, held a small, folded piece of paper. Samira's eyes flicked down to it, then back to her quiz. They were cheating. Not blatantly, but carefully sharing answers through a hidden note-passing system. They were part of the Best Student Act crew. In class, they raised their hands constantly, gave perfect answers, and were always the first to turn in immaculate homework. But Arush had seen whispers in the hallway, glimpses of copied assignments. They were like beautifully wrapped presents that, when opened, sometimes contained cheap trinkets instead of the promised treasure. It made Arush feel uneasy, like the ground beneath his feet wasn't as solid as it looked. Ms. Gupta, a woman with kind eyes that missed nothing and a voice like smooth river stones, moved quietly between the desks. She paused near Raj and Samira. Raj quickly tucked the note into his pocket, his face flushing. Ms. Gupta didn't say anything. She just placed a gentle hand on Raj's desk for a moment, her gaze lingering on his quiz paper, then moved on. But the quiet disappointment in her eyes was louder than any reprimand. Raj stared down at his paper, his shoulders slumping. Samira chewed her lip, her usual confident air gone. The act, it seemed, had a cost. The week unfolded like a slightly crumpled map. Maya and Leo tried another snack campaign mini quiches this time, but the initial novelty had worn off. The free food was still appreciated, but the coveted seat at table 7 remained elusive. Maya started looking tired, the glitter on her pins seeming less joyful and more like armor. It's exhausting, she confessed to Arush one afternoon as they waited for the bus, her voice quieter than usual. Trying to be what everyone wants you to be. My mom's quiches are great, but it feels like I'm just buying silence, not friendship. She kicked a pebble, the sound sharp on the pavement. Leo's saving up for fancy cupcakes next week. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Dante, meanwhile, had escalated. During Mr. Davies' coding lesson, he stood up. Mr. Davies, why do we have to learn Python? Can't we just, think the code? Wouldn't that be more efficient? Brain-computer interface, dude. Class erupted in giggles. Mr. Davies, usually patient, looked stern. Dante, sit down. We learn Python because it's a language computers understand. Thinking it won't make the robot move. Detention after school. Dante sat, but the usual spark in his eyes was dimmed, replaced by a sullenness that made him seem smaller. The thrill of the argument had soured. Priya, the perfect student, seemed off. She was unusually quiet during math, her hand not shooting up as fast. During group work on a geometry project, she fumbled a simple calculation. I'm sorry, she stammered, her cheeks pink. I didn't sleep well. Arush noticed dark circles under her eyes that hadn't been there before. Pressure of always being perfect, of never making a mistake, was starting to show cracks in her polished surface. Lila and Zoe cornered Arush by his locker after school. Please, Arush, Lila pleaded, her voice soft and urgent. The coding project is due tomorrow, and we're totally stuck on the collision detection. You're so smart, you'll figure it out in a second. Zoe nodded vigorously, her eyes wide. We'll owe you forever. You're the best. They leaned in, their perfume a sweet cloud. Arush felt the familiar pressure. He could help them quickly. But the way they framed it, you'll figure it out in a second, made his help feel like a chore, not a collaboration. He remembered Maya's tired confession about buying silence. Was this any different? Was he just another vending machine for their grades? Look, Arush said, taking a deep breath, the scent of old paper and metal lockers filling his nose. I'll help you learn it. But I won't just do it for you. We can go to the library now and I'll explain the logic step by step. Deal. He tried to keep his voice firm but kind, like Ms. Alvarez with Dante. Lila and Zoe exchanged a surprised glance. The sweet, pleading tone vanished, replaced by a flicker of something else, maybe annoyance, maybe relief. Step by step? Zoe asked, sounding doubtful. That might take forever. Better to learn it properly, Arush insisted, remembering Ms. Gupta's quiet disappointment in Raj and Samira. Otherwise, you'll just get stuck again next time. Come on. He closed his locker with a soft thunk. To his surprise, they followed, though Lila's usual bubbly energy was subdued. Honest. Turning point came during the big science fair. Quid's gymnasium was transformed. Cardboard volcanoes spewed harmless baking soda lava, intricate solar system models hung from the ceiling, and the air buzzed with nervous energy and the smell of poster board glue. Arush, Ben, and Priya had teamed up. Ben's project was the aerodynamics of everyday objects, why leaves fall like they do, complete with slow-motion video of maple seeds helicoptering down. Priya's was a meticulous, color-coded analysis of local water quality. Arush's was a simple but clever interactive display showing the stages of the water cycle using lights and sensors. You could create rain by pressing a button, triggering evaporation and condensation animations. Maya and Leo had a project too, the science of snacking caloric content versus happiness index. They'd survey classmates, but their data presentation was messy, the graphs crooked, and their conclusions, more snacks equals more happiness, felt forced. Maya looked stressed, her glitter pins askew. Leo kept adjusting the display, his usual confidence replaced by anxiety. Raj and Samira had a flashy project on renewable energy, but Urush noticed their research notes looked suspiciously similar to a website printout, and their explanations were hesitant, like they were reading lines. Chase Miller's group had built a surprisingly sturdy miniature bridge out of popsicle sticks, testing its load capacity with small weights. Chase worked quietly, focused, his usual intimidating presence softened by concentration. As judges, teachers, and local scientists moved through the exhibits, Urush noticed Ms. Gupta spending extra time at Priya's water quality station. Priya was explaining her methodology clearly, but her hands trembled slightly. Ms. Gupta asked thoughtful questions, her expression encouraging. Priya took a deep breath, steadied herself, and answered. A small, genuine smile touched Ms. Gupta's lips. It wasn't the smile for the perfect answer, it was the smile for the honest effort. Then disaster struck Maya and Leo's station. As Leo reached to adjust a crooked graph, his elbow knocked over a small bowl of colored candies they were using to represent different calorie levels. Hundreds of tiny candies scattered across the gym floor like a rainbow explosion. Maya gasped, her eyes wide with panic. Oh no! Our data! It's ruined! Leo looked devastated. All that work for nothing. He slumped, the glitter on his backpack catching the gym lights, looking suddenly cheap and sad. The Happiness Index project lay in disarray. Urush, without thinking, stepped forward. It's okay, Maya. It's just candy. He knelt down and started picking up the scattered pieces. Ben, who had been demonstrating how a maple seed's wing created lift, immediately joined him, his mismatched socks bright against the gym floor. Fascinating dispersal pattern, he murmured, scooping up red candies. Priya, after a moment's hesitation, put down her water testing kit and came over, her movements precise as she gathered candies into neat piles. We can reorganize the data visually. Might even be more impactful. Lila and Zoe, who had been hovering near Chase's bridge project, Chase's quiet competence seemed to intrigue them, saw what was happening. Lila bit her lip, then walked over. Here, let me help. Zoe followed. They didn't use their extra sweet voices, they just knelt and started picking up candies, their movements efficient. Even Dante, who had a project on the physics of skateboard tricks, mostly just cool videos, skated over, walking his board respectfully inside the gym. Whoa, candy avalanche! Need a hand? He started gathering candies with surprising care. Chase Miller watched from his bridge station. He didn't move immediately, but Urush saw him glance at his own group, then nod slightly. One of Chase's friends, a quiet boy named Marcus, walked over and silently began helping, his large hands surprisingly gentle with the small candies. In minutes, the scattered candy was being gathered. Maya and Leo, initially frozen, started helping too, their panic replaced by a dazed gratitude. They weren't alone. The gym floor, moments ago a scene of disaster, became a quiet hive of cooperation. The only sounds were the soft shush of hands gathering candy, the occasional murmur of "pass me the blue ones," and the distant hum of other projects. Ms. Gupta stood nearby, observing. She didn't say anything, but her eyes were warm like sunlight on still water. She saw Priya carefully sorting candies by color, her earlier tension gone, replaced by focused calm. She saw Lila and Zoe working alongside Arush without their usual performative sweetness, just quietly helping. She saw Chase's friend Marcus, usually part of the silent crew, actively participating. She saw Dante, the disruptor, being helpful. Maya looked around at the circle of faces: Arush, Ben, Priya, Lila, Zoe, Dante, Marcus, all kneeling, picking up candy that was supposed to buy her popularity. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they weren't tears of frustration. They were tears of relief. You guys, you didn't have to do. Oh, this, she whispered, her voice thick. Leo wiped his nose with the back of his hand. Yeah. We were trying so hard to be something else. To be liked. Ben popped a stray candy into his mouth. Liked for what? For snacks? Friendship isn't a vending machine, Maya. It's more like a mycorrhizal network. He saw their blank stares and grinned. Underground fungi connecting trees, sharing nutrients. Real connection is invisible but super strong. Snacks are just surface level. Priya nodded, placing a neat pile of green candies back on the table. Authenticity is the most compelling data point, Maya. Trying to be someone you're not creates inconsistencies in your social algorithm. Dante chuckled, holding up a handful of red candies. Yeah, what Ben said, but less sciencey. You were trying to buy friends, Maya. But friends aren't for sale. They're earned. Like respect. He looked surprisingly thoughtful. Lila met Arush's eyes. We're sorry, Arush, for always asking for coding help the way we did. It wasn't fair. We do think you're smart, but we should have asked to learn, not just to get the answer. Zoe nodded vigorously beside her. Yeah. Can we still come to the library tomorrow? To actually learn collision detection? Arush smiled, a real one that started in his chest. Absolutely. Step by step. Chase Miller walked over, his hands in his pockets. He looked at the reassembled candy display, then at Maya and Leo. You know, he said, his voice low but clear, my crew built our bridge just because we like building stuff. Didn't think about winning. Or who'd sit with us. He gestured towards his popsicle stick structure, which had just successfully held a surprisingly heavy weight. Turns out doing what you like, people notice. The right people. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod to Maya and Leo, then walked back to his station. Ms. Gupta finally approached. She didn't mention the candy spill. She looked at Maya and Leo's project board, now hastily reorganized with the candy piles forming a new, more organic-looking graph. "This is interesting," she said, her voice warm. The unexpected dispersal event actually created a more dynamic visual representation of data variance. Very adaptive. She gave Maya a gentle smile. Resilience in the face of unexpected variables is a crucial scientific skill. Well done. Maya's tears spilled over, but she was smiling. Thank you, Ms. Gupta. Later, as the science fair wound down, Ursh found himself standing with his friends near the gym doors. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple like spilled watercolors. The usual lunchtime factions were blurred. Priya was showing Ben her water testing results, fascinated by his aerodynamics talk. Dante was explaining skateboard physics to Marcus. Lila and Zoe were asking Arush real questions about coding logic, their voices earnest, not cloying. Maya and Leo were quietly packing up, but they looked lighter, less burdened. Chase walked over to Arush. "Your water cycle thing was cool," he said simply. "The lights made it easy to get." He paused, then added almost shyly, "My little brother's obsessed with space. Thinks the planetarium trip is gonna blow his mind." "You into that stuff?" Ursh's eyes lit up. "Yeah. I got the permission slip jammed in my backpack right now." He pulled out the crumpled paper, finally freeing it from the zipper's grip. Chase grinned, a real open smile that transformed his usually serious face. "Sweet. Maybe we can sit together on the bus? Swap stories about black holes or whatever." He held out his hand. "Chase." Arush said, shaking it. Chase's grip was firm but not crushing, like a steady branch you could trust. As they walked out of the gym, the cool evening air washing over them, Arush felt a warmth spread through his chest, different from the sticky heat of the cafeteria or the nervous energy of exams. It was the warmth of connection, real and unforced. He looked at his friends, the snack givers learning authenticity, the confrontational spark finding a calmer flame, the teacher's pet discovering it's okay to be imperfect, the quiet strength of the bad boys revealing itself, the girls learning to ask for help the right way, the cheaters. Raj and Samira had apologized quietly to Ms. Gupta after the fair, facing the consequences and starting over, and Ben, ever strange, ever fascinating, just being Ben. They weren't perfect. They were messy, complicated, and sometimes frustrating, like the water cycle itself with its evaporations and condensations, its unexpected storms and quiet periods of collection. But they were his ecosystem. They were learning, just like he was, that friendship wasn't about buying snacks, winning arguments, perfect grades, coolness, or strategic favors. It was about showing up, sometimes literally to pick up spilled candy, with honesty and a willingness to help. The walk home felt different. The streetlights cast long, friendly shadows. Crickets began their evening song, a gentle chirr-chirr that sounded like the world settling down for sleep. Arush thought about Ben's mycorrhizal network, the Invisib, threads connecting trees, sharing strength. Maybe that's what they were building. Not with glittery pins or loud arguments, but with small acts of kindness, honest conversations, and the courage to be a little weird, a little imperfect, a little real. He passed Maya's house. She was sitting on her porch steps, not with her usual frantic energy, but quietly eating an apple. She saw Arush and waved, a simple, relaxed gesture. No glitter pins in sight. Leo was beside her, sketching something in a notebook, not a snack menu, but what looked like a design for a treehouse. They weren't trying to be popular right now. They were just being. The corner, Dante was practicing ollies on his skateboard, but quietly, not for an audience. He saw Arush and gave a small salute, then focused on his trick, a look of pure concentration on his face. The sparkler was learning to burn steadily. Priya walked a little ahead, her planner tucked under her arm, but she wasn't rushing. She stopped to look at a flowering bush, her head tilted, actually seeing it, not just passing by on her way to the next perfect task. Lila and Zoe were a few steps behind Arush, discussing a coding problem with genuine curiosity, their voices normal, friendly. So the if statement checks the condition first, right? Lila asked. Yeah, Zoe replied, before it executes the block. No extra sweetness, just shared learning. And Chase? Arush saw him down the street, talking animatedly to his little brother, pointing up at the first stars appearing in the twilight sky. His big shoulders weren't hunched, they were relaxed, open. Arush reached his house. The warm glow from the kitchen window spilled onto the front path, smelling of cumin and turmeric from his mom's cooking. Mira was on the porch, her plastic animals now arranged in a circle under a blanket she draped over lawn chairs, pretending it was a starry tent. Look, Arush, she called, her voice bright as a bell. The Starlight Club is meeting. They're sharing stories about the moon. Arush smiled, the events of the day settling over him like a soft blanket. He sat down beside Mira on the cool wooden steps. The sky was deepening to a velvety indigo, and more stars winked into view, tiny pinpricks of light in the vast darkness. They weren't loud or flashy like Dante's arguments, or bought with snacks like Maya's attempts. They were just there, constant and quiet, connecting the sky in an invisible network just like Ben's fungi. Tell me a story about the stars, Arush, Mira whispered, leaning her head against his shoulder. Her hair smelled like sunshine and soap. Arush looked up at the emerging constellations, thinking of his friends, the good, the bad, the strange, the trying to be perfect, the trying to be popular. He thought of the spilled candy, the quiet help, the real conversations. He thought of Ms. Gupta's warm eyes and Chase's firm handshake. Okay, Mira, he began, his voice soft in the gathering dusk. Once upon a time, there were a lot of little lights in the sky. They weren't all the same. Some twinkled really fast, like they had too much energy. Some shone steady and calm, like they knew a secret. Some were hidden behind clouds sometimes, but they were always there. And they didn't try to be the brightest star. They just were. And because they were all just being themselves together, they made the most beautiful picture anyone could ever see. Like a giant glittering puzzle where every piece, even the weird-shaped ones, fit perfectly. He paused, watching a shooting star streak across the heavens, a brief, silent burst of light. And the best part, he added, putting his arm around Mira, is that you don't have to do anything special to be one of those stars. You just have to be you. Real. And sometimes when you're real, you find other stars who want to shine with you. Not because you gave them snacks or argued with the moon or got the perfect grade, but just because. Mira snuggled closer, her eyes wide, reflecting the first stars. Like Ben's strange facts? Exactly like Ben's strange facts, Arush chuckled. Or like Maya's real smile when she's not trying so hard. Or Dante being quiet and focused. Or Priya taking a breath. Or Chase sharing stories about space with his brother. Or Lila and Zoe just asking. Inside the house, the screen door creaked open. His mom stood there, silhouetted by the warm kitchen light, holding 2 mugs of steaming chai. Time for stories and chai, my stars, she said softly, her voice a melody in the quiet night. She handed Arush a mug. The ceramic was warm against his palms, the scent of ginger and cardamom wrapping around him like a hug. He took a careful sip. The liquid was hot, sweet, and comforting, just the way his mom made it. He looked back at the sky, now fully dusted with stars. The chaotic, confusing jungle of middle school didn't feel so overwhelming anymore. Felt like this night vast, beautiful, and full of quiet connections. The friends weren't perfect puzzle pieces, they were stars, each with their own light, their own rhythm. Some burned brightly and loudly, some shone with a gentle, steady glow, so me flickered with uncertainty, and some were hidden but still present. And when they stopped trying to be something they weren't, when they showed up as their real, messy, complicated selves, the whole sky seemed to light up in a way no single perfect star ever could. The moral wasn't shouted. It was whispered by the crickets, carried on the scent of chai, written in the constellations above. True friendship isn't built on what you can get, snacks, attention, good grades, or favors. It's built on the quiet courage to be who you are, and the kindness to see and accept who others are. It's in the moments you pick up spilled candy without being asked, or ask for help the honest way, or simply sit under the stars, sharing chai in silence. That's when the real magic happens, not in the spotlight of popularity, but in the warm, steady glow of being real together. Arush took another sip of chai, the warmth spreading from his hands through his whole body. Mira was already half asleep against his shoulder, her breathing slow and even. The stars above seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. The jungle of middle school was still there, with its lockers and quizzes and shifting tides, but Arush felt anchored. He wasn't navigating it alone on a unicycle. He was part of a network, strong and invisible, connecting him to Maya, Leo, Priya, Ben, Dante, Lila, Zoe, Chase, Marcus, and even Raj and Samira as they found their way back. They were all learning to shine their own light, not to outshine others but to illuminate the path together. He thought about the planetarium trip coming up. He'd be sitting on the bus, maybe next to Chase, looking up at the same stars they saw now but magnified 1,000 times. He wouldn't need snacks or arguments or perfect answers to feel like he belonged under that vast, starry sky. He belonged because he was there, real and present, just like every other star in the universe. The night deepened, the air cool and soft against his skin. The scent of his mom's cooking mingled with the earthy smell of the garden after sunset. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked softly, a friendly sound. Arush felt a profound sense of peace settle over him, deeper than tiredness, warmer than the chai. It was the peace of understanding, of connection, of knowing that even in the messiest, most confusing times, the most important things, kindness, honesty, and the courage to be yourself, were always the steady stars guiding the way home. He gently shifted Mira, carrying her inside. Her head lolled against his chest, her small hand gripping his shirt. His mom smiled, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. The Starlight Club tired her out? Arush nodded, laying Mira gently on the couch, covering her with a soft blanket that smelled faintly of lavender. Yeah. We were talking about how the best stars don't try to be the brightest. They just shine. His mom kissed Mira's forehead, then turned to Arush, her eyes reflecting the same warmth as the kitchen light. That's a very wise story, Beta. Remember it for yourself, too. She hugged him, the familiar scent of spices and home enveloping him. Now wash up. Dinner's ready. And tomorrow, she added, her voice light, try not to let your backpack zipper jam again. Or maybe, she winked, it just needed a little patience to open up like some things do. Arush smiled, the truth of her words settling deep inside him. He washed his hands at the sink, the cool water a gentle contrast to the warmth of the evening. Looking out the kitchen window, he saw the stars, countless, quiet, constant. They weren't loud. They didn't demand attention. They simply were, together, making the night beautiful. As he sat down to eat dal and roti with his family, the clink of cutlery and the murmur of his dad's voice about his day at the clinic were comforting sounds. The chaos of middle school, the sticky notes of friendship, the strange and the good and the bad, it was all part of his story, his constellation. And just like the stars outside, he realized, his light didn't have to be perfect to be valuable. It just had to be his. Later, in his room, Arush opened his window. The night air flowed in, cool and fresh, carrying the distant chirp of frogs and the soft sigh of the wind in the trees. He lay back on his bed, looking up at the patch of sky visible through the window. A single bright star dominated the view, maybe Venus or Sirius, Ben would know. He thought about Maya's relieved smile after the candy spill, Priya's calm focus during the reorganization, Dante's quiet concentration on his skateboard trick, Lila and Zoe's genuine questions about coding, Chase's offer to sit together on the bus. He thought about Ben's unwavering strangeness, a light that was uniquely his own. The moral wasn't a rule written in stone. It was a feeling as soft and real as the blanket pulled up to his chin. Being yourself isn't always easy, especially when you feel like you need to be something else to fit in. But the friends who truly matter will find the real you. They'll see your light even if it flickers sometimes, and they'll shine their own light beside yours. And together, in the quiet moments of helping, listening, and just being, you create something far more beautiful and lasting than any popularity, any perfect grade, or any loud argument ever could. You create a home under the stars. Arsh closed his eyes. The image of the scattered candy being gathered by many hands, the sound of genuine laughter replacing forced sweetness, the feel of Chase's steady handshake, these were the constellations of his heart now. The jungle of middle school hadn't changed, but his map of it had. He wasn't lost anymore. He was connected. The last thing he heard before sleep wrapped him in its gentle arms was the distant, comforting hum of the city settling down for the night, and the soft, steady rhythm of his own breathing, syncing with the quiet pulse of the world outside his window. He drifted off, not to dreams of perfect quizzes or popular tables, but to a vast, starry sky where every light, strange or steady, loud or quiet, belonged exactly as it was. And in that sky, Arsh Sharma, with his jammed backpack zipper and his warm heart, shone just perfectly enough. The night held him safe, a small, real star in the grand, comforting darkness. Sleep came, deep and peaceful, under the watchful, understanding gaze of the stars.